Hey, and welcome to our virtual gathering. I'm so excited that you are here, and a happy Father's Day.
Yeah, we have an amazing gathering coming up for you today. Welcome to Light Church. Hey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are so glad to have you with us. And as Holly said, it is Father's Day, so we want to take a moment to shout out all the dads, all the granddads, all the father figures, all the men at Light Church. We love you and we are so thankful for you right here in our church.
Yes, so thankful for all of you, and we're so glad that all of you are here this morning. Every single one of you that's watching this virtual gathering, we want you to head to the live chat, tell us that you're here, say a big hello. We want to connect with you, and maybe this is one of your first times here at Light Church at our virtual gathering, or maybe been a couple times before but you want to connect. Then head to light.church/connect and fill out that form so we can get to know you a little bit better. And this morning, if at any point during this gathering you need prayer, or maybe at any time during the week you need prayer, then remember this, head to light.church/prayer and fill out a prayer request form there.
So coming up in today's gathering, I know for the last 2 weeks we've been in a series called Money Talks, and we kept saying it is a two-parter. Well, we just felt like there was another week in it, so we're going to be carrying on our series Money Talks with our third and probably final week. So it's going to be a really good day. We're going to be looking at how to be content. So it's going to be fun.
Love that. And maybe you've got someone a little bit younger with you this morning. Maybe they're 11 years or younger. Perfect age for our kids ministry, Epic. Well, do not worry. We've got something for them on YouTube. Head to the search bar on YouTube and type in Light Church Epic Online. And there's some videos there. They're in a real fun series at the moment with some special guests. I think I'm the special guest today. So make sure you're heading there, checking that out, because it's going to be fun.
So you've got about 30 seconds before we head into worship. So again, these moments are yours. Invite some friends, invite some family, invite some co-workers to come and join us in our virtual gathering this morning. We will see you real soon.
Sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear worship, he hears faith. There is a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear worship, he hears faith. Awake my soul and sing his praise aloud, sing his praise aloud. Oh, awake my soul and sing his praise aloud, sing his praise aloud. There is a sound that changes things, the sound of his people on their knees. Awake up, you slumbering, it's time.
Hold me now in the hands that created the heavens, and find me now where your grace runs as deep as your scars. You pulled me from the clay and set me on a rock, and called me by your name, and made my heart whole again. Lifted up, and my knees know it's all for your glory, that I might stand with more reasons to sing than to fear. You pulled me from the clay and set me on a rock, and called me by your name, and made my heart whole again. So here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. And hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, but you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. In that grace owns the ground where the grave did, where all my shame remains, left for dead in your wake. You crashed those age-old gates, you left no stone unturned. You stepped out of that grave and showed me all the way. So here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. So here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, but you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. And healed and forgiven, look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds that ground. And your grace holds me now. And your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. Oh.
Hey, welcome to Light Church this morning. Welcome to our virtual gathering and happy Father's Day. Whoever you are, however you found us, we are so glad that you joined us on our virtual gathering this morning. It is going to be a good day. If you are a father or a grandfather or a father figure in someone's life, or you are just a man listening this morning, we are so thankful for you. And we're praying for you and we love you. And we hope that you feel celebrated today. We are with you. So, last couple of weeks we have been in a series called Money Talks. Now, before you go, oh, I'm pretty sure Dan said that was a two-part series. I did say it was a two-part series. But as we were going through, I just felt like there's another week. There was something else that we had to touch on. We needed to keep going. So, we are going to do a third and probably final part of this series, Money Talks. I'm dead excited. This has been a challenge to me as I've been prepping it. So last couple of weeks, I kicked it off with message 1. We looked at greed, we looked at generosity, we looked at giving, the importance of giving in the life of a Christian because it is the antidote to greed. And then our good friend, Pastor Johnny Leach from Light and Life in Thornton came over last week and he took a proper practical perspective on giving, tithing and offerings. And he just kind of looked at the significance of money in the life of a Christian. And whether you like it or not, like we have said, money plays a really big part in all of our lives. Like so much of our time is spent spending money, making money, earning money, saving money, managing money. Like money is a big part of our life, so that means we need to talk about it. But it's been interesting to me, and not just this time we've talked about money, but the conversation around money in general, when it comes to Christians, I often hear the same piece of feedback, or I get the same response. Now, these aren't specific to Light Church, this is just generally. But I hear this statement that said, well, I don't have a whole lot of money, so what does that mean for me? Or some people say, actually, look, we've been really blessed with money. I have a lot of money, so what does that mean for me? And I found it really interesting that we tend to, and this is like a principle, this isn't just with money, this is generally, and we need to recognize this, that we tend to approach the Bible, we tend to approach our faith through the lens of our experience. So what we have experienced in our life or our current reality, we bring that to the Bible, and that is what we look at the Bible through. It's kind of like the lens that we see the Bible. Now that's not bad, that's not wrong, but we definitely need to recognize that that's what we do. So often when this conversation of money comes up, people, obviously the immediate thing is people think about, okay, what about my circumstance? What about my life? What about my reality? And I'm going to view what you're saying or what the Bible is saying about money through that experience, that reality. And again, that's totally fine, but we need to recognize that that is what we do. So this morning, I don't want to go into this morning and say I'm going to create, some breakdown spreadsheet or money management tips or how to save or how to spend or some real practical advice. I actually want to take a step back from this conversation, just zoom out a little bit and help us reframe this conversation of money. Because there's actually an element that when it comes to talking about money that we need to understand. Like I said, we approach this conversation, we approach the Bible often through our own experience and reality. Therefore, every single one of us has listened to this teaching around money and thought, how does this work for me? And it's good, you've got to think, how do I apply this? How do I put this in my own life? But so often things get, filtered out, or we miss certain things, or we just sometimes fall into this place where we go, especially with money, like actually if I was, then I would. You've ever been there, like, oh, if I had enough money, then I would do that thing that Dan was talking about giving, or if I earned a little bit more, then I'd be able to do that thing Johnny talked about last week, like the gifts or the offerings, or actually if I was in this position, then I would. And so often, we can get caught in our life looking at other situations or hoping that we'd be in a different position to then make the right decision or to do the right thing. So this morning, like I said, I want us to zoom out for a second. I want to help us reframe this conversation. This is kind of like to help us approach this conversation of money. So this should help us look back at the last 2 weeks with maybe a different perspective, a different frame, possibly a different lens. And this morning, I want to talk about a word, contentment. When it comes to money, this is a word that we need to get our heads around, help us reframe this conversation, contentment. So I have two key texts this morning, two key parts of the Bible that I want to draw on. And the first is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 to 12. So we're going to sit in this for a little bit and then we're going to jump into another one a little later on. So this is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through to 12. I'm going to read it. It'll come up on the screen.
But it says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." So, I heard of a study pretty recently, and I'm not sure if it was conducted recently. I heard of it recently, and the study was this: they had two samples of people, and one of the samples was a group of people that earned around £25,000 a year, and another sample was a group of people that earned £50,000 a year. Now, the purpose of this study was to ask one simple question, and it got put to both the samples, and it was this: how much do you think you would need to earn in order to be comfortable or to never worry about money again? And the results of this study were really, really interesting, because something really funny happened. The group of people that earned $25,000, now obviously this was taken on average, I don't know the specific figures, but the group that earned £25,000 a year on average said that if they earned £50,000 a year, they would be comfortable, all their problems would be sorted, and actually they wouldn't need to worry about money anymore. And then the results from the second sample were very, very, very interesting. So the second sample obviously earned £50,000 a year, and that group of people said, if we could just earn £100,000 a year, then we'd be comfortable. All of our problems would be sorted, and we wouldn't need to worry about money anymore. And it was found that people actually think that if they were to earn or to have double or around 2 times what they currently had or earned, then they would never have to think about money or worry about money ever again. See, we actually live in a society that encourages discontentment, that is actually built to encourage and exploit discontentment. See, we need to talk about this idea of contentment, because the society that we live in is not something that is going to encourage us to be content with what we do have. It actually encourages discontentment. See, discontentment can be described as this: the subtle itch for more. The subtle itch for more. So, as Christians, how do we live out our faith in an environment that is constantly shouting and screaming at us to get more, to spend more, to acquire more, to be more? How do we be Christians in an environment that is telling us that what we have is not enough? We need more. How do we do it? Well, quickly, let's look at some context of this passage in 1 Timothy. So, Paul is like, he's like the big boss, and Timothy is his apprentice. So he's teaching Timothy. He's like, this is the lay of the land. This is how the Christian faith works. He's laying out. He's saying these are the rhythms of Christianity. These are the ways that we follow Jesus. These are the ways that we should act as Christians. And he's teaching all about how to care for people. And he's teaching about the importance of money and the different things in the Christian life. Now, some people, Paul knew this, that some people had taken Paul's teaching and they'd seen it as a means to actually make money, to make wealth. They'd misused his teachings, and kind of, you could call it maybe an element of the prosperity gospel that says that if you come to Jesus, then you will be completely rich and you will never have to worry about money ever again, and everything will be given to you. Paul is saying some people got his teachings and thought that they could get material gain by following them or by implementing them on others or enforcing them on others. So Paul is saying to Timothy, like he's teaching Timothy these rhythms. And this is where this passage comes, like even the title of this little passage is called False Teachers and the Love of Money. So he's saying people are like parading around talking about these teachings of mine, about Christ, about Jesus, and saying that this is actually going to make you money. So this is the context of what Paul is saying, and Paul addresses a few things. The first thing in this passage he addresses this: godliness and contentment are the real gains here. So Paul is kind of saying to Timothy, look, these people are saying that if you follow the teachings, then you can acquire earthly wealth. Paul starts off by saying to Timothy, look, if we want to talk about real treasure, if we want to talk about gathering the real stuff, if we want to talk about what actual gains look like, then this is it. It says godliness with contentment is great gain, is the real stuff. That's the real treasure, godliness and contentment. And then he also addresses this. Listen, he says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. Now, if you remember back to week 1, we learned that money is actually amoral. So money is neither good nor evil. It can do no good, it can do no evil. It's actually the hands of the person it is in, or the intentions of the person, that make it good or bad. It is amoral. Paul is addressing this itch for more. You know, he's saying that people that have this eyes for riches, people that just are constantly looking for more, to increase, to gather more, to get more. This itch. I love that word because it's just like this niggle. It doesn't seem like it's such a big problem. And this is why we need to talk about contentment. Because actually it's really important that we talk about money. It's really important that we talk about giving and tithing and offerings and gifts. And it's really important to talk about how we actually spend and steward God's money. But we need to take a step back here because so many Christians do not recognize this sin of greed in our own lives because it's so subtle. It is so subtle. But what does Paul mean about contentment? What does he mean by contentment? So Paul actually also wrote a lot of the New Testament, but he wrote to a church in Philippi, which is one of the churches that was planted there. And he talks specifically about contentment. So I thought it would help as a backdrop to this Timothy passage for us to dive quickly into Philippians chapter 4. So it's going to pop up on the screen. And I'm going to read. I'm actually going to read from verse 10 through to verse 13. So Philippians 4, 10 to 13. So this is Paul literally outlining what it is to be content. We're going to jump into this. We're going to get some observations, some lessons from Paul here about contentment, because we need to understand contentment. Because that itch for more is actually the thing that will lead us to ruin. If you read in that Timothy passage, it is actually the thing that can pull us away from our faith. It can be the thing that actually robs us of this relationship we have with Jesus, because it actually pulls us away from God. It turns us away from God. So we need to understand it. So what does Paul say about contentment? Philippians 4, chapter 10. So it says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. Verse 11, this is important. It says, I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Verse 13, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So this is going to be another key text for us today. Timothy, the 1 Timothy passage sets the scene. It is saying that, look, this love of money will pull us away from our faith. And I actually want to submit to us this morning that so many of us miss this real subtle problem in our lives. Maybe you're sat there thinking, I don't really have a problem with contentment. I don't really have a problem with greed. But if you sit there and ever think, if only I could just, then I would. Maybe this is more of a problem in your own life than you would care to admit. And the reason I really want to address this morning is not because I just think it's a good thing to do, but this is a matter of freedom. This is so important. You cannot do anything in your life. You cannot do anything about the things in your life that you don't acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge what is going on in your life, you can never do anything about it to fix it. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about contentment. So I got a couple observations about contentment that we need to get our heads around to help us frame this conversation around money. So if you're taking notes, listen, contentment is not natural, nor is it common. Contentment is not natural, nor is it common. So in verse 11 and in verse 12, Paul says this, I have learned. And in verse 12 he says, I've learned the secret to being content. This is not human nature. Contentment is not human nature. If you actually cast your mind back to the origin story of humanity, when it was created by God, lived in perfect peace, creator living with created. Perfect harmony, perfect peace, perfect balance. What was it that severed the relationship between humanity and God, that allowed sin into the world? That we call the fall of humanity. This moment where that relationship was severed. What was it? It was a desire for more. Humanity was told that God doesn't want you to do what He's told you not to do, because actually you will then be as powerful as Him. You will be able to do the things that He can do. You will be more than you currently are. Can I suggest to us this morning that actually discontentment is the preset of humanity? When that relationship between creator and created was severed in that garden that day, this discontentment flooded the human soul. It tore us apart from the inside, and it left us with this little hole to say that you will never be enough. You always need more. That's why this is such an important conversation, because this is more than just good advice on how we manage our money. This is actually something that's deep within the heart of humanity. This is something that is designed, it's perfectly curated to pull us away from God. It is the very seed that pulled created from creator, and it can do the very same thing in our life today. See, discontentment is this subtle itch for more. This, if only I could just, then I would be. If only I could earn more, then I would give and be generous. If only I could earn more, then I would manage my money differently. If only I could live in this house, then I wouldn't need to spend much money on this. This can surface in our lives in so many ways. But ultimately, this idea of contentment, it is not normal and it is not common. It is not normal because it is the preset of humanity to say, I want more. Like if you look at kids come out, like when a kid is just being a kid, you often have to teach a kid to share. You often have to teach a kid what not to do when it comes to this matter of being selfish or being greedy or wanting more. Because it's this preset that we cannot get out of unless we are intentional about saying, okay, I want to look at contentment in my own life, because it's not normal. It is not human nature. And then Paul says, I've learned the secret. I love this language. I've learned the secret. Implying that, look, this is not just common knowledge. This is not just something everyone does or everyone knows. This is something that people do not know about. This is something that if only people would know, then their lives would be completely different. My question to you this morning is, if discontentment is the preset of humanity and you are not being intentional in your life, can I ask you a question? Do you have a problem with contentment in your own life? Would you say that you have actually found that place of contentment? Contentment can be described, just if you go into the dictionary, it says like a state of happiness or a state where everything is okay. I actually want to say it's a deeper state than that. Actually, contentment is this deep peace. Peace in who you are. Peace in what you've got. And peace in who God has called you to be. That is what contentment is. And when it comes to our money, content, saying, look, it is not based on these external things. It is based on something deeper. We're going to dig into this in a little bit. But do you have a problem with this discontentment in your life? Maybe it's something you've never thought about. Maybe it's something actually today is the first time you've realized, of course, discontentment is so subtle, and actually there's so many times when I found myself angry at God because I'm saying, if only I could have this, if only I could do this, then. Maybe this morning is going to be a morning of freedom for you, where you're going to finally find that place of peace in who you are and what you've got and who God has called you to be. So, contentment is not natural, nor is it common. This is why we need to talk about it, because we want to make it common in this church. As Christians, we want contentment to be like just common amongst all of us. So, contentment is not natural, nor is it common. Secondly, contentment is not in things. It's not in stuff. Contentment is not in things. So, if we look in verse 12 of this passage in Philippians, this is what Paul says. He says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Some of you might listen to this conversation and you say, hey, I'm all good for like stewarding God's money. I'm all good for like generosity. I'm all good for talking about this stuff. I'm all good for contentment, but you don't know my situation. You don't know how volatile things are. You don't know how hard my life has been. I don't know how hard your life has been. I don't know your situation. And I'm never going to know the ins and outs of your relationship with finance and your relationship with God. But let me just encourage you with something here. Paul says that he knows what it is to have a lot, and he knows what it is to have nothing. So actually, if we were to look at Paul's life, we don't have time to dig into it today, but if we were to look at Paul's life, he has been imprisoned, he's been tortured, he's been like exiled, he's been beaten, stoned, he's been chased out of cities, he's been in places of affluence, he's been sat next to like the highest of the highest politicians, he's been sat next to rulers, he's been in with the in crowd and he's been in with the out crowd. He has lived a crazy life, and he stands here and says, I know what it is to have plenty and I know what it is to have lack. I actually would submit to you this morning that you don't know what Paul's life is like. We can read about it, but you will never experience what it feels like to have hundreds of people throwing stones at you because of your religion. Or you probably won't know what it feels like to be imprisoned and put in chains and whipped and beaten. And many of you probably won't know what it feels like to sit beside rulers and politicians and people of affluence and the richest of the rich. Paul has lived quite a contrasting lifestyle. I think he's the one that is qualified to speak on this. But you see, what was interesting to me is this, is when we talk about contentment, I probably got this wrong when I look back. This has challenged me this week. I often thought that contentment was this. It was looking at what you had and saying, this is enough. I always thought contentment was like, you look around your life and it's like being grateful for like, oh, I have everything I need. This stuff, you might be in need in your life and you might need some more finance, but you actually, contentment is looking at what you don't have and saying, oh, this is enough for me. That's actually not what Paul is saying here. That's not what contentment is. Contentment is not in things. This blew my mind. So often we want to say, I can't be content because I don't have enough. Well, Paul's saying, good, because it's not about the stuff. Contentment is never supposed to be hooked upon the material realm. It's actually supposed to be hooked in something beyond. Paul says that there is no correlation between contentment and circumstance. Let me say this again. Paul is suggesting that there is no correlation, as in they do not affect one another, between circumstance and contentment. Listen to what he says. It says, I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. He hasn't even experienced every situation. He's already saying, I can be content. This says that contentment transcends circumstance. Contentment is far bigger than circumstance. So if you're sat there thinking, Dan, you don't know my situation, or I don't need to know your situation. God knows your situation. He is saying you have the opportunity to live a life of contentment regardless of what you face. Whether you are broke and you are down and out, or whether you are living a life of affluence right now, you can still be discontented in both of those, and you can be contented in both of those. This is crazy. Contentment is not in material things. It's not about looking at what you have and pretending that it's enough. Paul is literally saying, I have been in need. The context of this passage in Philippians is Paul saying, thank you for giving to me. I didn't say this to you because I was in need, because look, I'm content whatever's going on. I know God will provide for me. It's all fine. But they actually gave him money because he was in need. So it's not about looking at what you have and pretending it's enough. It's about actually finding a state of peace and contentment regardless of what you face. Contentment transcends the circumstances because it is about eternal treasure, not earthly treasure. The verse I read out earlier, 1 Timothy 6:7 says this, for we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. He's saying it's meaningless. The material world is never going to give you fulfillment, is never going to give you contentment. So in this conversation, when we talk about money, we need to recognize this. Contentment isn't found in money, in having it or not having it. It's found somewhere else. It doesn't mean by just pretending everything is okay, you will be content. That's not where it is either. It's earthly treasure is the thing that causes discontentment. But eternal treasure is the thing that allows us to transcend the circumstance and to be content in what we do have and in who we are. So you may be asking, well, how do I get it? If contentment is not natural, nor is it common, and if contentment is not in things, then how do I actually get it? God, give me, listen to this. Paul outlines the secret sauce here. Paul outlines what it is to be content, how we actually get it. Listen to this, contentment. If you're taking notes, this is the most important note you could take today. Contentment comes only from God. Contentment comes only from God. Verse 13 says this, I can do all this. This being okay when things are crazy, when I have plenty, when I have nothing, when I don't know if I got something and I don't know if I got nothing. I can do all this. How? Through him who gives me strength. Him, he's talking about Jesus. Jesus gives us strength. The only place we can find contentment in our life is in relationship with Jesus. Some of you have been trying to do this on your own for a long time. Some of you have trying to been making it through life, trying to figure things out, provide for your family, move forward in your life, and you've been trying to do it on your own, and you're trying to live this life of following Jesus with the best of your ability, but something just isn't sitting right, and you just can't keep going because it just feels like something isn't there. There's I don't really understand what's missing. You just haven't found that place of contentment, especially with your money. You've been trying to figure it out on your own. Let me give you some advice this morning. Stop. Paul didn't say, I can do all this because I am strong. No, he says, I can do all these things. I can be content. I can stand tall. I can stand strong. I can be okay because Jesus gives me strength. Let me offend you for a second here. See, this passage is used so often. You see it on people's fridges, you see it on cards, you see it all over the place. I'm talking to Christians just for a second here. And it says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Now, this passage does not mean that. Of course, it's saying that we can overcome through the power of Jesus. That's fine, we can take that. But the actual meaning of this passage is far deeper than that. It is actually far deeper. This is not just a mere promise for provision. Like God saying, look, when you're in a sticky place, I'll help you out. This is actually a promise of divine presence. Okay? I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Strength in my weakness, strength in the moments where I need it the most, strength when I don't think I can go on anymore. This is not just a promise of God saying, yeah, I'll make sure you're all right. It's God saying, I will walk through it with you. I will walk through your darkest hours with you. I will sit beside that hospital bed with you. I will be at that funeral with you. I will be wherever you go. I will be with you. Let us not get this twisted. This is not just some weird triumphalist Christian thing where it's we can do whatever we want. No, we can be content with having loads or having nothing because Jesus promises his presence. In John 15:5, Jesus says this, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So Paul and Jesus here are contrasting two things. Paul is saying, with Jesus, you can do everything. Jesus is saying, without me, you can do nothing. Some of you have been trying to do this on your own for a long time and you've been getting to that very same place. Nothing. You just can't seem to get it going. Let me encourage you. God wants to do this life with you. He wants to walk out this life in relationship. And one of the things that pulls us away from him is discontentment. Let us not be those people. Let us be people that address this. So maybe you're listening this morning and you actually have really struggled with that proposition of actually we can be who God has called us to be in relationship with him. That actually we don't need to be more. We don't need to give more. We don't need to have more. We don't need to have this little itch for more in our life. We can be fully content in relationship with Jesus. Maybe you really struggle with that. Like, I just don't feel like I'm enough. I constantly feel like I need more. I constantly feel like I need to have more, say more, be more. Or maybe this morning you've realized that you've actually been struggling with discontentment for way longer than you thought. Maybe greed is something in your life that has been that little soul numbing thing in the corner of your life where you've just felt like you're not quite on it in the way that you follow Jesus. Like there's this little block. Maybe that's greed and discontentment in your life today. Well, like I said, this is not a moment of condemnation. This is not a moment for me to point the finger and like, hey, you've been caught out. This is a moment of beauty and a moment of freedom. But the decision is yours. I can't make this decision for you. But I want to read this out. This is what Jesus says. And this should give us everything we need as I come into close. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 says this. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Let me read that again. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. As you drag your weaknesses to the foot of God this morning, wondering if He's going to accept you, wondering if it's going to be good enough, wondering if it's going to even be enough, the promise of our God is not go clean yourself up and be more and then come to me. It's actually this, that our God loves us so much and He wanted us to be in relationship with Him, that He sent His only Son, Jesus, to take on skin and bone and live a human life, to be tortured on a cross, to die and lie in a grave for 3 days, to take on our sin and our shame and our brokenness and our not enoughs. And every time we miss the mark in the past and in the future, and then He rose from that grave to trample on sin and shame and death and offered you the opportunity of freedom. This is His grace. This is the gospel story. He ascends back to heaven to be seated right beside God, to speak to God on your behalf. My grace is sufficient for you. We are not coming to someone that is making you like have to clean yourself up. He's saying, just come to me. Because why? In your weakness, my power is made perfect. We get given a righteousness that is not ours. If you want to know the secret to contentment, it is the grace of Jesus. It is the grace of our God that we do not deserve, but we get anyway when we come to Him and we say, God, I'm sorry. So maybe this morning you've never made this decision. You've never made the decision to follow God. You've never ever crossed that line of faith to say, I want to follow Jesus with my whole life. I want that itch for more to just go. I just want to feel completely at peace with who I am, what I've got, and who God has called me to be. Then all you got to do is take your life, all of your brokenness, all of the sin, all of the ways that sever that connection from God, that turn you away from God, all your hopes and your dreams, and say, God, I give you my life. I accept that sacrifice on the cross. Thank you for taking my place. And this morning, your life will change forever because you will feel so restored and you will feel like that click on the inside. You finally got it, that thing you've been searching for. It's not found in anything else. It's only found in relationship with Jesus. Let me pray. Father God, I want to thank you for your presence here this morning. Thank you for this message. Thank you for this challenge. God, may we honor you with our lives and our finances. May we steward all the gifts that you have given to us with the best of our abilities, with the cleanest and purest of hearts. God, I pray right now for that spirit of discontentment that severed us from you in the first place. God, we come against it. And I pray for boldness in the life of every single person listening right now that knows they have changes to make. God, I pray that you would give them the strength to overcome that discontentment. God, thank you for all of those people who came to know you for the first time this morning, that crossed that line of faith and want to know you more. God, I pray right now you fill their life with so much freedom and peace and grace. God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, it is such an important topic to talk around. I've loved this, and we've got loads of courses. If you are struggling with debt, you are struggling with money management, we have an amazing program called CAP that we would love to put you in touch with. They can help you out, some real practical stuff. But that is the end of our series, Money Talks. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy Father's Day. Like I said to all the men, we love you. Thank you for the part you play in this church. It has been a good day. It's been a good series. Thank you to everyone who's been part of it. And we will see you real soon. See you next week.
What an incredible morning, what an incredible gathering we've had. I've loved this series so much. It's been so good. Thank you for bringing that message this morning.
I've absolutely loved this series as well. Thank you to Johnny who came last week, and it's been so good to talk about money. It's so important. So if anyone has over the last couple of weeks missed any, I encourage you go back and rewatch them. Or maybe the last couple of weeks have stirred some questions or have stirred some thoughts, or you just want to check some stuff out. Please do get in touch. This stuff is supposed to be worked out in conversation, in community. So please do email us at hello@light.church. Or maybe this morning or one of the last couple of weeks, you decided to cross that line of faith and say, I am in, I want to follow Jesus. And you wanted to take that step to become a Christian. We want to celebrate you. Make the best decision you have ever could make. But we want to resource you, want to give you a Bible, we want to get you plugged into life groups. We want to make sure you do not do this journey alone. We are here to help.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, email hello@light.church.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously, if you've been watching today, you're probably at the edge of your seat, like, when they're going to talk about it. Yes, I'm about to tell you about the 4th of July. After Monday's announcement that was made, we are going to be postponing our first gathering back in person. We're going to be moving it till the 25th of July. We did send out an email to all of you that have connected with us, so remember to connect with us so you're getting those emails if you want to be in the loop about everything that's going on here at Light Church. But yeah, we're going to be postponing till the 25th of July. Hopefully, if the government move the date earlier, we will again move ours. If they move it a week earlier, we'll move a week earlier, and so on and so on. So just stay connected with us. Connect with us if you haven't already, so you are getting these updates and letting us know. If you are wanting information about our first gathering back in person, then do email us at hello@light.church. If you don't want to connect but you want some information so we can make sure you're in the loop too. But this is exciting. I know it's a bit gutting. I'm gutted. I want to be with you guys. I want to be in person. I want to squeeze you all on the 4th of July. But we want to make sure that our first gathering back is as safe as possible, that we can be as free as possible, that we can sing together, we can worship together, and we can just be in community together in the way it's supposed to be. So hold tight. We're still going to be here doing these virtual gatherings, but we'll see you on the 25th of July.
I know we have to wait a little longer, but it is going to be a bigger party when we do get back together. I can't wait. It's still going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you get that date in your diary. Like Holly said, it will move if the government release things earlier, but get it in your diary. Make sure you invite some people. It is going to be a really good day. But that is everything from us. Like Holly did say, if you're not already connected, you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook. Obviously, subscribe to our YouTube, like this video.
Yeah.
Make sure you are connected and you don't miss out on anything. But we have loved spending these few moments together this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you right here next week. But other than that, happy Father's Day.
See you later.
Soon.
Bye.